I would also like to share a screen, which I can do in just a minute. I thought that when approached with such a important and broad question, that I would maybe address it in a very schematic way, and really trying to look at how all of these different factors, Dr. Abdullah gave us a very comprehensive overview of many factors, as did our first panel, and really look a little bit more at how they interact with each other systemically, both to promote opportunities for peaceful development, or on the other hand, to address sort of sustained conflict producing systems. Can I just check, can you see the screen with the graph now? Yes, okay, good. So I know for some people who are more visually oriented, something like this is very helpful. For others, they just see a bowl of, I don't know, spaghetti or something. But my point for sharing this with you is to try to say that we cannot look at any of these different things on their own. We cannot think just in terms of a single cause resulting in a single effect. And I think that that's how we see many of the presentations already that we have had today. To understand things as our societies are complex, adaptive, living systems that are always changing and growing and interacting. And to understand systems, we need to understand how things interact with each other, as well as the underlying, we could call them rules or principles that are the logic that is guiding those interactions. So when we look to a continent as diverse and as beautiful as Africa, we can say in each society, these things are going to play out differently. And each of these factors is neutral in a way. It will vary from one place to the next. I think one of the things that Africa as a continent, though, has in common, which is something that has already been mentioned this morning, was the history and experience of being many countries, many regions being colonized. And the logic of colonialism, of course, was based on the extraction of wealth and resources and endless expansion of those, as well as the capturing of those for the benefit of some with the exclusion of others. And those others became often dehumanized, marginalized, lesser than kinds of groups. And it would seem that at least in some countries, even through the process of subsequent of independence, some of that system logic may have remained behind, very regrettably. And so when we look at some of these factors, some ones that I really want to highlight right now, because I'll highlight a few of them, then also sort of say a little bit about how we see this playing out in the new trends towards violent extremism, and then think about some of the implications for what can be done to using this under this systems lens to think about how to build more sustainable and inclusive government development. So I think if we look at the factors here, if we look, there's this particular dynamic that we see in many societies that I think is quite well known of patrimonial state capture, where we see countries where a particular group was able to mobilize its support base to capture the state and its resources, which is then used to distribute patronage to its supporters, who then work hard to keep that group in power. So you can see that as a sort of self-sustaining system loop. It also was one of the reasons why maintaining control of the state unilaterally is become so high stakes in so many countries. And that has become something that seems to have continually been a challenge when it comes to promoting a more peaceful and developmental state. This is not true of every country, of course, but it has been one of the patterns that helps to explain. And I think underlying that is we see this way in which a logic of systemic exclusion has been something that has characterized many, many places. This, of course, is not just in Africa, it's in my country as well, though it plays out a little bit differently. So by systemic exclusion, we're talking about social exclusion, so access to education, to services, health, infrastructure. Some groups have very little access to those. Cultural exclusion, where languages, cultures, religions may be not recognized, not given the same treatment and status in the country. We see economic exclusion, where control of assets, of land, other things are held within the few. Others have little access to them, access to employment and opportunities. And political exclusion. Political exclusion, again and again we see around the world, is one of the biggest trigger points for actual armed rebellion, but is something that builds upon these other patterns of exclusion. And so I think exclusion is one of the really major factors that would need to be addressed when we're looking at sustainable development and peace.